We know what we're looking for in a winner, and each task helps us to get closer to that point. You're dismissed.
I didn't come to play around, I came to win. This competition means stepping out of my comfort zone.
What I've learned from the activities, and then I'm gonna put that together, come up with a strategy and take it one day at a time.
I don't want to go in and say, this is my strategy and this is exactly how I'm going to win. I think that needs to go through a process of being adapted.
Strategic alliances, this is quite important, and being prepared, always being prepared for every task that you go to.
I have a deep desire to be the best. I think that's what drives me. If you don't compete, how do you know that you're the best?
The Insurance Apprentice is the perfect platform for me to display the skills and the techniques that I've learned within the insurance industry and to share that with the rest of South Africa.
If I forget that they're good and they made it here this far because they were good, then I would lose the competition.
Being able to, answer questions, handle tasks well, and just engage with the team members.
We've lost 2 people so far. 6 of you remain. The competition's getting tough. I know there's been some conflict in the group. Dealing with conflict is something we have to do every day in business, so I suggest you work it out. And I know there were some tears yesterday when Vanette left us. Also part of the contest, unfortunately, but we have to move on. Today's task is sponsored by Emerald, and we're very fortunate to have Chris Potter with us. Chris?
Thank you, Simon. Welcome, contestants. Emerald set the task today on behalf of the Insurance Apprentice. Emerald Africa is an underwriting manager writing corporate property and business interruption insurance solutions on behalf of Santam. We use the Santam license, and we write business in 63 countries and jurisdictions in Africa and the Indian Ocean Islands and internationally. Your task today is to come up with a solution for the corporate property and business interruption covers for a large retail company who's head officed in South Africa with businesses in Africa and the Indian Ocean Islands. All of the information that you will need is in the pack that you have been given. Your task is to come up with 2 renewal solutions for this year and for the following year, when the South African office adds 2 African countries each year into the renewal. Please don't restrict yourself to only the information that is in there. Use the information you have. Think about what other solutions and information may be required, and put that to the task.
Thanks, Chris. Today you'll be split into teams. Team 1 is Knox, Kutlwano and Joseph, and Team 2 is Blessed, Samantha and Carl. And you will of course be expected to choose a leader of that group. And I don't need to remind you, but the leadership role comes with great responsibility. You can interpret that however you want. Getting the reinsurance structure wrong for an insurance company is potentially the end of their business. Getting it wrong for you is also potentially the end. You're dismissed.
Today's task, we are working together with Emerald. It's a reinsurance task. Nobody here does reinsurance. We were given some reading material yesterday, so we studied through the night to try and figure out what all of this is about.
So we have to propose renewal terms. So the client previously was a South African risk only, and now is looking to go to other countries.
As an insurer, we need to evaluate how risky the client is and how much can we sort of reinsure that risk with the reinsurance company. So we're looking at creating that insurance program for our client.
It is going to be a tough one for me. I'm going to have to move to the insurer side of the field where I'm used to being the broker. but I'm very comfortable with the material and I think we can present a very good case.
So it's very different to what I generally do on a normal basis, but it's a very interesting portion of insurance that I've been wanting to actually tap into. So it's very exciting.
Our idea of putting this task together was to try and get them to think, to read the information. Everything they need is in the information they have been given. If they don't read all of the information, they may miss something and not be able to complete the task properly. You have to be able to work as a team and work with other people because you have strengths and weaknesses. Even if you know nothing about insurance, it's about reading it. If you can read and do basic arithmetic, you should be able to complete the task.
The Emerald guys are looking for more than just touching on the reinsurance. You know, they want to see how they deal with structuring the program. They want to see how they've analyzed the risks, if they've picked up anything. It's a cross-border thing as well, so they've got to take into account conditions in different territories. So it's definitely a challenge.
Personally, I think we've been given sufficient information. The question is, what do you do with the information and which angle are you going to look at the information? But the task is extremely challenging. The task requires us to also think out of the box in our solution as an insurer.
So we have quite a bit of reading. Our approach has been, okay, let's understand the material. The one thing that's been stressed is everything is important. Don't miss anything. The smallest detail will derail you. And if that solution is wrong because you've missed that detail, that could spell disaster for you, basically.
I think technically it's quite heavy. I don't think any of the apprentices are just going to walk into it and know exactly what they need to do. It looks like they've been given quite a lot of information by Emerald as well. So I did hear one of them talking about, you know, the challenge isn't not having the info, it's maybe having too much and trying to figure out what needs to be used and what needs to be discarded. So yeah, I think it's going to challenge them.
So we don't believe in saying, listen, you're going to be team leader. A team leader needs to be comfortable. So it was a question of who wants to be a team leader. Today I wasn't up for it because I felt like I had my opportunity yesterday. So I just wanted someone else to take control.
Joseph was the elected leader for our team. Kutlwana didn't want to do it, I didn't want to do it, and he stepped up and he said he would. It just made sense. So we kept getting asked who's our leader when we first got the task. It's not something that we considered priority.
It's very difficult to be a leader of a task that you don't know, but the information is there, it has been provided, and we just need to look for the answers within the information and do our best.
There's no red herrings or things in there to catch them out. It's about making sure that they understand what the task entails and reading the information and putting the information they have to work.
It's a challenge, which we love, but I think the team dynamics are great. Blessed is good with numbers, I'm good with the legal side, so I think we're going to complement each other well there. And we've got a nice team leader, which is Carl.
So the leader of our team, I proposed myself, and Sam and Blessed were very happy with that, and we agreed. So I'm leading the team today. One of the things that we did quite badly yesterday was our time management. So we didn't manage our time going into the task. So I've structured our time very carefully today to ensure that we can be ready in time to present, and we're a lot more comfortable and we're not flustered before we go into the presentation.
People are being judged on how they kind of gel as a group, and of course if you're the leader, how you manage to pull everyone together. And I think that that's going to be pretty important in this task. And I suspect one of the groups is probably going to struggle.
So the conflict that happened yesterday did cause a bit of trouble in the way that we presented. We ended up not really working like a team. We ended up working like individuals.
There has been mention of conflict. They've been whisperings, here and there. I haven't witnessed anything.
It has been brought up today, and I've said, guys, we're focusing, we're not talking about that now. We're going to leave that yesterday. That was yesterday's problem. Today's a new challenge, and it's a tricky one. We need our minds here. We need to focus. We need to zone in.
The conflict started 2 nights ago. We had dinner, and we came back. We're chilling by the bar, by the pool, and we're talking. And Joseph's, he raises a point that, in my opinion, was so arrogant. He's like, the previous apprentice winners, they did nothing to demonstrate that they were brand ambassadors to the industry. I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and like the rest, like they're doing nothing. And in my opinion, like, I only knew you when we met in this competition. I don't know what you did before. So you cannot use your circle of friends and assume that people that are not in your circle, they are doing nothing in the insurance industry. They're not adding value as ambassadors of this industry. Then Simon puts me on the spot, like, Blessed, who do you send home? Like, who was the weakest link in the team? So I gave the name, and my name was justified. You see, everyone has got their own strategy on how they want to win the competition, but no one is taking it personal like Joseph.
There is no tension between me and Blessed. I have to be honest, yesterday after he tried to eliminate me, I was upset. But when we went out for dinner last night, I went to him, I shook his hand, and I had a brief conversation with him. And then this morning, when I saw him, I shook his hand again, and then I went back to my corner.
You know, if there is a conflict, I think the better thing to do is to acknowledge that it's there, and then perhaps to have a conversation or two to try and resolve it. Denying that it's there is as bad as making a big deal out of it and just kind of going off the deep end. You know, neither of those two approaches are good.
I would hope that my approach is not dogmatic and I'm not trying to brush over the feelings, but today is not about feelings. Today is not about emotion. And it's strange that a woman's telling men not to have feelings, but that's the reality. And guys, we need to focus. This is real. This is a tough challenge.
Initially, we looked at it as a reinsurance task. But we've just had a discussion with Chris where he says that's not it. You know, so we're required to be creative, and I think now there's a little spark going that says, okay, you know, I have a bit of room to play around here. It's not a matter of ticking the box to see if you understand. So it's not a test per se. It's a get creative, tell me what you can do for our clients. We're in the insurance industry, we are approached with a variety of risks. What can we really do?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us here today. We are from I Insurance Company. I'd like to introduce Sam, Blessed, and myself, Carl. We're here today to present you with indicative terms for the 2018-2019 renewal and the 2019-2020 renewal. Blessed will talk you through the sums insured and the rates that we've come up with.
First of all, we look at the territories that were applicable to us as an insurer in South Africa. And we realize that South Africa, Mauritius, and Morocco is what we're going to look at it in 2018. So the total sums insured for South Africa in 2018 is 3 billion rands. Mauritius is 125 million, and Morocco is 413 million rands. But we look at a very important aspect, to look at the requirements of local retention of risk.
Is that gross of the deductions or net of the deductions?
It was gross of the deductions.
Okay, so that's what the insured has to pay.
So it's net, so my apologies, it's net.
Okay.
There's still other expenses that they have to take into account. I'll take you through the gross calculation of how much the insurer is supposed to pay.
Do you think Mauritius is a good risk or a bad risk?
My colleagues will cover more in terms of the risk, whether is it good or is it a bad risk.
We've got some ideas on how to improve that and get them.
In my opinion, you should have worked more on that, because you have your ideas what you're going to tell us now about the risk quality, and you've already come up with a premium, and you've left money on the table.
Yes, so currently without the recommendations being completed, we think that it's a challenge for us to insure. So we've got a structure that we think is going to incentivize the client to improve the fire risk.
Does that structure include the premium that Blessing has just noted?
Yes, so it makes adjustments to the indicative premium that we've proposed.
Can you see why I'm concerned about him giving me the premium before you've told me what else? And that's why I had a question.
Yes, no, we are very concerned. It is, however, an indicative quote, which we're going to refine as we get more and more information.
Okay, I'm going to take you through a little bit of the methodology behind all of this and our risk assessment that we conducted based on the report that was provided. The addition of Zambia to the group goes above the $100 million underwriting or treaty limit. Now, we decided, and we have a plan for that, and to accommodate for that additional amount, we have decided to reinsure that additional 30 million rand limit through facultative reinsurance, and that Carl is going to take us through.
Was that just for the one country, or was it for the whole program?
For the entire portfolio. It's a policy loss limit at $130 million.
And what did you understand the policy loss limit to apply to?
So,
like every country?
So the policy loss limit will only apply to the sums insured that we're retaining on our books in our policy. In order to underwrite the risk, we would like to propose to the client a fire-only excess of 20 million and a other excess of 3.5 million. This will reduce the total cost of insurance for the client with the proposed rates, and it will be a more sustainable portfolio going forward.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We don't have enough information. The rates they had were obviously far lower than
Should they have declined the Mauritian risk, declined to quote, based on the survey?
No, it's part of the program.
Right.
I mean,
it's all or nothing.
They've got this risk. You need to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
Not a reason to not do something. You've got to come up with, and saying we can't insure it or we're not going to, it's not a solution.
Yeah.
You have to come up with something.
Yeah.
I mean, I had said for Morocco and Mauritius that one of the things that was concerning me, they were looking at the claims experience and going, 4 million. But they didn't realise it was in local currency. You change that into rands or dollars,
yeah.
It's inconsequential. What they went for was beating the premium. Sam put some thought into the survey report and the risk recommendations. They never looked at it. They glossed over it. The two boys never looked at that survey report properly.
We'll obviously need to benchmark them against the next group to know who's the win. But you're saying it wasn't really convincing.
It was a solution, yes, and they'd taken everything into account, but they hadn't discussed the whole thing. It's fine doing, I'll do the maths and you do the English and I'll do the compliance, but you need to understand how it works. You can't all the parts of it, and they didn't.
Today we were tasked with presenting renewal terms for a retailer who would like to expand into Africa.
It's based in South Africa, it's expanding into Morocco and Mauritius, and we have to consider these risks. So in looking at the total sum insured, the final figure arrived at was 4,17,388,371 Rand. We gave it a quality rating of fair and thus applied the rate of 0.25%. Now, this client has a low frequency of claims. There's a total of 5 claims over the given period for the loss ratio. They suffered one very large claim, an isolated incident of fire. And that's how we arrived at our total premium of 11,989,82.94.
Gross of deductions or net of deductions? The 11.98, what is that?
Gross.
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 Okay.
And as you can see, this total premium falls within the insured's budgeted amount of 50 million Rand for the 2018 insurance period.
Okay.
All right, so I will be handling the last 2 sections of the task, which relate to the measures that the insured can put into place in order to qualify for a reduced rate.
Okay.
All right. Now, based on the information that we have identified that Mauritius is the one country where the insured can put measures into place in order to get a reduced rate. And the things that we have considered are the maintenance of, for example, of sprinkler systems to ward against the higher fire hazard, overall maintenance of the fire extinguishing systems, fire detection and rapid response system to be implemented, as well as the general maintenance of that particular shop because the shelvings and everything are collapsing.
The shelving's collapsing? In the store or in the warehouse or where?
In the store.
The Mauritius premises.
And you still want to insure this risk and you have no deductible?
What we did there, we rated him as poor risk and we applied a deductible of 17.5 million for business interruption and property damage.
Okay.
And there was another deductible of 100,000 for things like shelves falling, theft and stuff like that.
Okay.
You just shook your head. Why did you do that?
I didn't.
I saw you do it. Do you not agree with Joseph's assessment?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, so Joseph would know how he arrived at that answer.
Did you guys work as a team on this?
We
Because
did.
it seems like you have a bit of a fragmented approach.
So we looked at how do we use our resources? How do we use technology? And how do we impose risk management in a way that it's going to work in the end? Because whatever we've been doing is not working. So we spoke to the pipe contractor, we brokered the deal, they're doing business together, so it's a win-win for them. Because we've saved them the premium, they have the money out of their budget to spend.
Did you read all of the information that you were given? The explanations on the treaty of what each of these things are? Yeah? Did you understand, was it clear enough for you to understand what those things were, what an incidental risk was? Yeah?
We'd like to think so. We asked questions where we didn't know, because obviously this is new territory and we wouldn't understand everything. So we sought quite a bit of guidance in order to understand.
We're going to have to wrap this up. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You're dismissed. How was that?
Imaginative.
Creative underwriting.
Creative underwriting. The one thing I did like, they had a good perspective on the continuity of the relationship.
Yeah.
Again, and it surprises me, 11.98 million rand premium.
Yeah.
The others had 12.
Yeah. So there's consistency in the pricing in our company.
Consistency in the pricing in the company.
We're consistently cheap.
Consistently cheap, leaving 3 million on the table.
Yeah.
The other thing is they didn't read the treaty properly as far as incidental was concerned. Libya.
Kutlwano.
Didn't know what the deductibles were. She didn't even know if they had put deductibles together because she would have
Well, that's what I was
She
confused.
said, no, we didn't
because
have these three guys. If they had worked
together. Yeah.
they would have maybe blown my socks off with regards to the fact of the parts that were in their solution. They didn't come up with the entire thing, but they'd thought about it.
Okay. Welcome back. It was a pretty tough task. I'm going to hand over to our sponsor, to Emerald. Thank you, Chris, again for that. And please give the guys your feedback.
Okay. Thank you for taking on the task. It was tough. There were a lot of questions. Most of you had the same issues that you were concerned with regards to the risk itself and how to interpret the information you were given. The one thing I found quite interesting was that both teams came up with a premium that was so close. It could have come from all of you as a team. You did, however, leave a lot of money on the table. The guidelines were there, yes. I felt that you did consider the risks, whether they were good or fair or poor. You judged the fact that you didn't have sufficient information on most of the countries. So you erred on the side of caution, which was a good thing. I would have liked you to have come up with a deadline for the risk improvements. Nobody did. Okay. I enjoyed the interaction I had with you as a bunch of apprentices, and I think that you've got a lot to think about going forward, not just in the insurance apprentice, but with your careers and how you interact with other human beings. Yeah.
So the scores were quite far apart between the winning group and the losing group. So even though, as Chris said, there were some, you hit the same number, your delivery of your solutions and your analysis of the information, one group was way ahead of the other one. So the winning group today is Carl's group. So well done to you guys. Joseph.
Yes, Simon.
The two lowest scores in your group are you and Knox. There was just this kind of general lack of cohesion in what you guys were doing. It felt like you were running your own individual campaigns. Kutlwano, who out of these two remaining team members, in your opinion, should go today?
In my opinion, I would say Joseph.
Joseph, you did have the lowest score today, so it ends here for you.
Thank you.
You're dismissed.
It's my turn to go home today. I'm actually glad about it because I am an introvert and I was stretched to my limits in this competition, which I'm always glad for. But I guess it had to come to an end. I think there's a lot of working under pressure in this competition. You need to figure out and come up with clever solutions in a short space of time. So it's opening up a lot of opportunities for young people. Everybody who thinks that they've got it and they can do it should definitely come to the Insurance Apprentice. Thank you so much, FA News.